Okay, great. So continue with the recruitment theme. We're going to be moving on now, and we've got a great presentation coming up for you. And we have Charna from Textio, Emma from ARM, and they're going to be talking about how ARM's been using Textio to really make sure that they find the best talent for the company. And so without any further ado, I'll hand over to you guys and you get started. All right, thank you.
Perfect, thank you again. We're going to switch it up a little bit and have a bit of a conversation because we like conversation. I'll let Emma start a little bit with what ARM is doing in the world, and then we'll talk a little bit about how Textio fits into that.
Perfect, thanks so much, Charna. So I don't know how many of you are technical sitting watching this in an HR presentation, but to explain what ARM does, I thought it would be a good idea to bring it to life. The amount of you that have been sitting taking pictures and videos with your smartphones, sitting behind those screens are ARM chips, making that connected world possible. If you think about 30 years ago, it was a dream state. You used to watch perhaps The $1 Million Man, and you used to dream of a world where bionics was possible. We now have ARM technology that makes that possible. You might remember Michael Hasselhoff and his car, Kit, that could talk to him. I remember that very well. I used to dream of a car that could talk. We now have that, and the mind boggles for me as to where technology is going in the future and where the next 30 years will take us. We've come on leaps and bounds, and I'm so delighted to be a part of ARM and where that technology is going to lead us in the future.
Yeah, so Textio is an augmented writing platform. In general, words create your reality. If you don't have a word for something, if you can't communicate about it, it doesn't exist. But we all communicate differently. So if you could imagine for me the last time you wrote something and wanted to know who was going to respond to it, and you may or may not have gotten a result that you wanted. Textio takes data, massive amounts of data on specific document types to let you know exactly how your words are going to impact the audience before you put it out there in the world. And it will tell you why. So the people that are building ARM, the people that Emma is trying to attract, can be impacted dramatically just by the words that are in their job posts or in their recruiting email. And so together, in our partnership, we can change that. So I just want to talk a little bit about Emma because this is the second time I've actually had a chance to work with her. She used to be at Credit Suisse and did the rollout at Textio in a completely different setting, which was amazing. And she had the most dynamic introduction to sort of her diversity and inclusion perspective that I had heard at that point. This is probably 3 to 4 years ago now.
Correct, yep.
And so she is so passionate about advocacy for the individual and embracing every individual as unique, right? Because we can't separate our sort of layers of experience from the world, and yet we're trying to quantify individuals. So it's been quite the journey because we've gone from this financial industry to this technical industry, and it's just been such a great partnership so far to sort of work through all of this with you.
Great, thank you so much. And just before we move on, Charna, I'd just like to just highlight to everybody who's here and joining the live stream that last night we had the awards ceremony for CogX, and Charna and the team at Textio picked up the award for, what was the exact title?
Best AI Product in HR.
Best AI Product in HR. So one to watch is an organization called Textio.
Thank you.
So please do check them out.
Wonderful. So on the slide here, we have the D&I vision of ARM. And Emma, you joined last year around this time.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about the core beliefs at ARM and how you align that with the different products, processes, and partnerships that you decide to do in your talent services.
Absolutely. So I think the first thing to follow on when I've spoken about what ARM does, the vital thing here is that ARM don't manufacture anything. ARM is based entirely on the cognitive power of our people, the intellectual capability of the people that we attract into ARM and retain within ARM. We're an intellectual property organization at our heart, and we need to remember that throughout everything that we do as an organization. When we attract somebody in, that's only the first step of the journey. We operate off a core belief system, which is absolutely ingrained in everything that we do. And it syncs very, very well with Textio as an organisation. So we have 3 core beliefs. The first one highlights our collaborative approach, and it's all about we, not I. The second one is about being your brilliant self. And for me, I love that. We want every single person to come to work being their true, authentic self, not needing to bend themselves out of shape when they come into the office environment. And the third one is around passion for progress. We are an organisation that's transforming the world of technology, our interconnected devices. We work across multiple vertical streams. We work in automotive. We're looking at the future of driverless vehicles. We work a lot in the healthcare industry. What is the future of medical devices? So we really are changing the world in so many great ways. So how do we take all of that together and look at it from a talent acquisition perspective? We obviously use lots of different tools. We use our people in order to help generate that talent coming into ARM. So how do we all sing together in one voice? So Textio is one of the tools that we use, that we find helps greatly in terms of predicting the success of engaging with potential candidates and increasing our candidate pipeline. We also use LinkedIn Recruiter, which will be no surprise to anybody in the room from a people perspective. But at the moment, we're doing something quite exciting with it. We are rolling it out within pockets of our organisation to our hiring community, something that hasn't been done before. So our hiring managers are becoming recruiters. Not only are we going to be data mining their own existing networks, we're asking them to go out and data mine wider networks. Predominantly, we're focusing on ensuring that ARM is building an inclusive workplace. And that workplace is somewhere where all of our brilliant people can grow and they can thrive. I said that we don't want people to check in and check out as they come to work. We want our people to be genuinely happy. And how do we measure that happiness? Mm-hmm. That's a key question. Possibly not one for today. That'll be another 20-minute session another day. We're trying to increase the number of women within our organisation. But we aren't focused on gender diversity. We want to attract the best and brightest talents to ARM and enable those people to reach their fullest potential.
Perfect. So I think that brings us pretty nicely kind of into our problem statement, right? Because you are looking really, truly for the most qualified candidates, regardless of their background. So I think this is a really great version of it that I've seen from inside of ARM. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I was asked what the problem statement was that we were trying to fix when we considered Textio as a potential solution. And I thought long and hard about how we could describe this. And I wanted to describe it from one of my customers' perspectives, because I think that rings truest. And the voice of Stefan Dieseldorst, who's one of our principal research engineers, sums it up. And I confess that every time I read this, I get goosebumps all over, because he sums it up so beautifully. And I'm going to read it out. I want to have the best idea generators, problem solvers and critical thinkers working in my group. I want them to be able to share their ideas, use their rich and diverse educations and ways of thinking to unlock new perspectives and ensure that we create the most innovative work on the planet. For that, I need a very diverse set of thinkers, talkers, extroverts, introverts, detail, big picture people. Anytime someone is afraid to share their perspective, I lose. Anytime a smart person decides not to apply, I lose. Improving the culture so that more people are enticed to pursue a career path that ends in my group, I win. And for me, that picks up not only on the need to consider diversity as a whole, rather than pigeonholing people into categories. It thinks about how we're going to help those people to belong within our organisation once they join us, how we're going to retain them.
Wonderful. So this really actually brings us to those boxes, right? And you've talked to me at length about this before.
I have.
And so tell me a little bit about this.
Well, I tried to sum it up, and I think this slide sums up how I think about diversity and what I wish the future of diversity could be. And I long to see what diversity looks like in 30 years' time, how our conversations will have moved on. I am me. I don't want to be put into a box. I don't want somebody to attach a label to me. I'm Emma John. That's how I'd like to be seen. I see all of these faces, and I'd love to know your names so that I could consider you as you.
Yeah, and this really impacts, right, AI and machine learning in general, right? Because the way that we need to train algorithms, natural language processing, to determine the phrases, the structure of the language, and how it impacts not wanting to be put in these boxes means we have to be very careful, right? We do need to quantify and to measure, but that doesn't need to be fixed. So one of the most amazing things about building an augmented writing platform is it's only as good as the data you collect. And if you are collecting data because people are self-identifying as one of these different boxes, that's a lot easier to quantify the impact of your words, because you don't know, how do I identify? What are my pronouns? You know, am I an American? Was I in the military? Like all of those things that you don't know and shouldn't know in the interview process. But if someone does choose to identify and you are collecting that data, we can measure how words are impacting those outcomes today. And when that changes and when we introduce new words and phrases that allow people to identify in different ways, then tomorrow we will measure something different. So the true power of augmented writing is that the data changes over time. And the way that the words work with different people changes over time. We get new phrases in our vocabulary. So how do you adaptively know every single day something that isn't your lived experience, that is someone else's? And you cannot unless you have that data. So this is what brings me to kind of the rollout story, because when you're thinking about AI and you're thinking about machine learning and you want to bring it to your entire organization, not all of those people are engineers, not all of them are in tech. So there were lots of specific considerations in the rollout, the pitfalls, the successes, the challenges. You know, how did you bring AI into the people team services offering that you were really trying to level up?
So it would probably help if I bring the story to life, this quote that's in front of us now from the lovely Mark Hambleton. I was working with Mark and I was introducing him to Textio. He had a need to hire and he had a job description. It was a very flat, reused over and over again job description. As somebody who is an expert in software, he is a very difficult customer to be able to please when you're rolling out a new software product. He is the expert. So I went into it with a little bit of intrepidation. I didn't talk to him about Textio being an augmented writing platform. I didn't talk to him about machine learning. I showed him how this tool can work. We as recruiters and people professionals assume that not only our teams but also our hiring managers have an innate ability to be able to write and write well. We all know that sadly that's not the case, and that's where Textio comes in. Mark had this challenge, which was how can I create the most compelling job advert that's going to attract the right people in the right location and for us to be able to engage with them for a very tricky piece of hiring he was undertaking. The great thing about Textio is that it guides you every step of the way. It provides you with alternatives. It tells you how you can improve your job posting. And because of the simplicity, it's intuitive. And that's really important when it came to the rollout. The piece with how we encouraged the people team to use it was also vital. I think I was very, very lucky that I had a large amount of the talent acquisition team within ARM who'd already used Textio through other organizations. So I had some great advocates who we used as global champions to roll it out. One thing which I want to say here is that there may be a temptation to jump on the AI bandwagon. It's the next big thing. But unless you truly understand and can measure what those outcomes are that you're trying to derive from it, then it's a somewhat pointless exercise. You may go down the AI route for the sake of it. One of the things that I love about Textio is that it's data-driven. It shows you what the likelihood is of success based on multi-millions of data points. And for us as an engineering organization, which loves data, it works beautifully. There's another part of Textio which I've seen within 2 different organisations, and Textio has an element of gamification. I've rolled Textio out within an investment bank, and the gamification element of it was largely ignored. I've rolled it out within an engineering environment, and you get awarded badges depending on various levels of activity, successes in being able to create the most compelling job advert. The highest accolade is a purple squirrel if you achieve a score of 100. And I've walked around our global HQ in Cambridge, and I've heard people in the atrium over a coffee talking about chasing purple squirrels. And it's created a healthy internal competition, both across teams, within teams, and it has a way of collaborating. You can collaborate within the people team, with your customers, to get input, and it drives that conversation about diversity, the words that you're using. Not only makes you think about how you're hiring people, but it makes you think about the words that you use in everyday language, whether it be inside of the office, outside of the office, and it's helped me on a personal level hugely with how I interact, those words that I choose to use.
Yeah, and it's incredible, right? Because there is always the question of what is good writing? How do you know when you're done? And the answer is you don't know, right? Because something, like, we can surely talk about grammar, we can talk about spelling, but does it matter? And you don't know unless you're looking at the specific domain and how those words work with those people. So sure, it might start with job posts, but with the recruiting mail that you're using with LinkedIn as well, you need to know for that domain, what are my words doing to my audience? Which really brings me to why this is important. Why is it important for people at ARM to experience this belonging?
And it's fascinating. And the word belonging, I think, is quite key. It's going beyond inclusion. And we don't want to include people, we want them to feel like they truly belong. ARM is a very unique organisation. And I don't think we can really put that into words for people who are coming to join us until people arrive with us. It's something which is so unique, we struggle to find the words to describe it. But the belonging part of D&I, for me, is when our teams perform their absolute best, when they belong, when they feel that their voice is being heard, they feel that they can speak up, they're going to be listened to. We take away all of those other boundaries. There are no boundaries based on demographics, no boundaries based on hierarchy. You are there because you are the best talent that exists in the market, and we're there to listen to you. You are the expert.
Great. So this will bring us to that individual story, to that candidate, of how do they feel, right? So we have probably 3 or 4 minutes left, and I think 2 more slides to get through. So
okay, super fast.
Super fast.
So in summary, this feedback from a candidate demonstrates to me the absolute power of language. This was unsolicited feedback that arrived in my inbox, and it shows how we can engage better with future talent, whether that be talent that we're able to attract now or talent that we're able to attract for the future. As simple as that.
Yes. Okay. And then the one last thing I want to bring this to is there are many different ways you can measure, especially for any machine learning or AI technology. There should be something that you're measuring, right? It's a statistical model you can measure. But this is a particularly interesting piece because it turns out when you have hundreds or thousands of people writing, whether it's job posts or recruiting mail, you cannot and you should not control exactly what they say, but your culture and your brand comes through. So this is a hiring language report. It's something where we can compare the language that ARM is using at scale today to their nearest talent competitors and see what is the prevalence that they use different words compared to people in the same market looking for the same talent. And then layer on top of that these language patterns and what statistically it means today. So you can see, there are phrases that statistically attract more men or women to apply when they identify that way. There are phrases that turn away or attract qualified candidates. So this is something that we can see is in ARM's language. But the thing I'd love to hear from Emma actually is, now that you can see some of these phrases, how does it actually fit back to your brand? What pieces of this is something where you would love to propagate it through?
Well, given the time, there were a few that I was going to mention, but for me personally, I think I'm going to pick up on happiness.
Okay.
So by creating an organisation that is inherently built on trust and collaboration, looking to others' judgment, trusting that judgment. We recognise the power of the individual. We're an individual-based organisation through and through. Our core beliefs, I've already spoken to them, they are everywhere. They permeate every part of the organisation. We live and breathe them, we don't just talk about them. I've said that we're a unique organisation. That is fundamentally true. If you've spoken to any of the any of my ARM colleagues who are here today, you'll understand that. That'll be clear. And we recognise that uniqueness as being a way of us being able to collectively succeed as an organisation. Without our unique talent that we attract, we don't manufacture anything. We simply rely on that unique talent coming to join ARM and stay with us and come back day after day.
Wonderful. So I'm just going to leave you with, if you would like to reach out, we'll also be available in the speaker question area. And we can certainly talk about measurement or language or whatever you would like later. Thank you.
Thank you.